Good evening to everybody. Usually our CLEs are during the day, but this is the first one that we're doing from 5 to 6:30. This is a first for New Mexico Judges and Lawyers Assistance Program, this town hall meeting. I am the director of the New Mexico Judges and Lawyers Assistance Program. My name is Pam Moore, so I want to thank you all for coming. And like I said, this is the first time we've had what's called a town hall meeting. And they've done this in one other state, Delaware did this, and they were very successful at it. And so we wanted to also kind of copy what they did and also have just an open discussion about things that are sometimes hard to talk about, and not only hard for the general public, but sometimes they can be especially hard for certain professions, and the legal profession is absolutely one of them. So I want to thank you all for coming. And want to let you know that hopefully it's not too clunky night, but I will get into how this is going to work. And before we get to the next slides, I want to take a moment to thank the three amazing attorneys that we have up here. Mr. Briggs Cheney is going to be the moderator, and then we have two discussion participants that are going to share their stories and their life with you tonight about what it's like to be an attorney, Mr. Ray Vargas and Ms. Denise Torres. So I just want to say how grateful I am for all of them to be here. When Briggs asked Ray and Denise if they would be willing to do that, they, I don't think, knew exactly what they were getting into, but both of them jumped at the chance to do this. And so it's been really, I'm just so grateful that they're willing to do this. It's been huge for JLAP. So I'm going to let Briggs introduce them in just a minute. Let's see. One of the things I wanted to tell you a little bit about is there's a lot of talk right now about the fear in lawyering. There's a book out by Heidi Brown, and it's called Untangling the Fear in Lawyering, a 4-Step Journey Towards Powerful Advocacy. And so what we have asked these three attorneys to do tonight is what she talks about in this book that is hard for a lot of attorneys to do, and that is to talk about the fear in this profession, and to talk about not only how sometimes it's scary to work in this profession, do the things that you all do, but also to recognize it, and then if it creates anxiety or depression, to recognize that and to seek out and get help, so to connect and reach out. So that's hard. But Heidi Brown has a quote in this book, and she said, "We are effective counselors and advocates because we are human and real." And so when I put the description of this town hall meeting together, that is one of the things that I made sure to say at the very end, is that what I'm asking these attorneys to do is be real with you. And there's not a lot of attorneys that I think do that. And for good reason, but I am asking them to be real and to be authentic and to be honest. Okay. The next thing is, let me tell you a little bit about how this town hall works, is that in a few minutes I'm just going to turn it over to Briggs, and he's going to be your moderator, and his job is to guide the discussion, and he has some questions that he's going to ask Denise and Ray. And the other part of this, though, is for you guys to participate, and that is why we called this a town hall meeting, because we expect you to participate and to ask questions. And I know we have a few people that are on the live webcast, and so if at any time they have questions, they can write them, and I will get those questions, and then we will answer them. Okay? So you guys are an active participant in this. So let me go to my next quote. Okay, so this is a recent quote by President Bob Carlson that says, and I just want you to keep this in mind as we start going through this process, to be an ethical, competent lawyer, you first need to be a healthy lawyer. And really, I'd like you guys to think about what it means to be a healthy lawyer, because we can each define that in a different way. But if you heard President Carlson speak at all this year, every single time he spoke, he mentioned well-being and the health of our legal profession. And he is a very big advocate for attorneys being healthy, emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. And he talked about it a lot. All right. So these are our town hall objectives. Basically, to talk about a little bit about the characteristics of this profession. What would the type of person, the personality type, want to go into this profession? How the feeling of fear and anxiety can be overwhelming at times, depending on who you're in front of, who's opposing you, the client, the case. There's a whole bunch of different reasons and ways that this can be a little bit scary. And then the stigma that surrounds acknowledging or admitting that we can be scared at times, that maybe we have some anxiety, maybe we're feeling a little stressed. And then what gets in our way for reaching out for help? What is it that, and I've heard lots of things, but I'd really love, these guys are going to tell you, and I'd love to hear what you have to say about that as well. And then we're also going to talk about tools or ways that we can minimize that stress. What are the different things these three have really learned over the years? They've been practicing for a very long time. What makes them so wildly successful all around as a holistic attorney? How have they gotten there? And what are the tools that they use? What are the coping skills that they use in order to do what they do? Okay. So just to show hands, do I have any law students here? One? No, because we invited the whole law school. Okay. They could all come in for free too. All right. Okay. So if you can't read that, at the very bottom it says, remember, it is better to look good than to feel good. Okay? Okay, so I'm going to put a cap on that so that the light's not in their eyes, and I'm going to hand it over to Briggs.
Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you, Pam. Before introducing our two guests this evening, I'm going to kind of restate what we hope to do tonight a little differently than the way Pam has described it. I think we have two hypotheses that we want to address tonight. One we want to prove, and I think the other one we want to try and disprove. And the first hypothesis is that everybody gets scared, all of us. And that's the one I want to try and prove. The second hypothesis is that we all do get scared, I believe, and we all think we're alone. We're the only ones to get scared. And that's the one that we hope to discuss with you and hope to maybe disprove for all of you this evening. There's nothing very, we're going to be very transparent, wide open on this, and Pam and I, when we decided we wanted to do this, we thought, well, how do we do this? And the best way, thinking like a lawyer, was, well, let's get a couple lawyers. Now, New Mexico has got its share of good lawyers. I will tell you, at least in my mind, we have a couple handful of what I call really, really, really good lawyers. And so the method to our madness this evening was that we went out and looked for a couple of those really, really, really good lawyers. And I will tell you, there's no mistake that we have a female lawyer and we have a male lawyer tonight. And as I was thinking about this evening, and Pam and I did not talk about this, there may be a difference. And I'm not sure if that'll come out, but I'm kind of interested to see what it is, and if there is, and we've got a good mix in the audience tonight, and maybe that, maybe we'll learn something about that. But let me now turn to introducing these two really, really, really good lawyers. And I'll tell you all, and I'm not sure how to react to this. Maybe I should just feel older than I already feel old. I knew both of these lawyers before they were lawyers. I've known them a long time. Denise, who I'll talk about in a moment, was a runner in a law firm that I worked for years ago. And Ray was a law clerk in a law firm that I worked for years ago. Denise is a super lawyer. She used to practice the active practice of law in the southern part of the state. She is a former president of the New Mexico Trial Lawyers, incredibly gifted as a lawyer. Today, she is now limited her practice, I think, exclusively to mediations, and she is one of the state's top mediators and sought after in that regard. She has also chaired is a chairperson, of the Supreme Court's Judicial Performance Evaluation Committee, which has to be, I guess I could use the S word here, but it's got to be the hardest job in the state. And the fact that she has been asked over and over again to be the chair by the Supreme Court says just volumes about Denise. Ray is still practicing law, an incredibly accomplished trial lawyer. In his other life, Ray and I worked together when he was doing defense work, and Ray and I worked together representing lawyers in legal malpractice. It was one of the joys of my life, practice, or at least professional life, to work with Ray. And the defense world was not enough for Ray, and he is, many of you may know him, but he has been incredibly successful in the plaintiff side of the world, in medical malpractice, insurance bad faith, complex litigation. He's been way involved in, I never have understood the redistricting things, but it's fancy law that happens every once in a while when politics interact with the law. And he is just, he's a number of multi-million-dollar verdicts. And the two of them are just two of what I call really, really, really good lawyers. And so they're the ones that we thought they would be our way of proving the one hypothesis and disproving the other hypothesis. But I had up there the Billy Crystal thing, which Pam has read to you. There's enough people in the audience. I hope everyone remembers or knows Billy Crystal. There's enough of you in the audience who are maybe young enough that may forget that he was part of the Not Ready for Primetime cast of Saturday Night Live in the 80s, and used to do a skit about, I could have Bill Lang do it, "You look marvelous." Bill would do it better than I do. But he did have the famous line, "It's better to look good than feel good." I thought that'd be a nice transition into starting our questions tonight, because I will also tell you, besides being really, really, really good lawyers and gifted lawyers, these are two of the best dressed lawyers you will ever meet. Ray, on any given day, I won't even tell you, it's from shoes to the tie, probably 5 digits. And Denise, when she worked for us as a runner, she never wore the same outfit twice. I don't know how she did it, but these are two good-looking lawyers. They look good, so now let's talk about how they feel. So with that pardon?
Dead inside.
Dead inside. Well, let me, since you volunteered,
Yes,
I've said a little bit about you, and I could have, I have a long resume I could have recited to all of you about him, but is there anything more, Ray, you might tell us, tell me, tell the audience about who Ray Vargas is?
You know, I don't know what to say other than this is my hobby. I don't have any real hobbies other than practicing law. And, you know, one of the things I want to talk about later when we talk about, you know, work-life balance and things like that is if I could have done something differently, that's probably something I would have done. And one of the reasons I think I'm capable of talking about being scared shitless in this profession is that when I started out, I thought, this is who I am. The lawyer that I am is my identity. And starting to get a few gray hairs now, putting a few years in, I'm starting to think about, is that really who I want to be? Do I want my profession, my practice, to be my identity? And will I really get fulfillment and happiness out of that? So
Okay.
that's all I
Denise,
can say.
What would you add to what the brief things I said about you?
That I am a recovering trial lawyer. I still, the angst sometimes overcomes me. And the perfect example was last week. I'm getting ready in my bathroom, and all of a sudden I get this text from a farmer's trial lawyer saying, "Where are your jury instructions? And where are these things?" And all of a sudden I just, like, my heart stopped, and then I remembered, that's not me. I don't have to go try a case in a couple weeks. And so I text this female lawyer back, and I said, "Oh my goodness, thank you for reminding me that."
Why not to be a lawyer anymore?
But for 26 years, I did it. I wanted to be a lawyer since I was 7, and I enjoyed so much of it. But there were times where I just wondered, is this it? Is this all that life has to offer? And so I'm used to now, especially as a mediator, I feel like a priest sometimes, because people feel very comfortable telling me very private things because they know that I will keep it or I will talk to them about it. And I wish that more trial lawyers, more lawyers in general, because if you're a lawyer, our work is just hard. Just own that. If your children are thinking about going to law school, tell them it's going to be really hard.
Okay. Well, let me, I introduced you all as really, really, really good lawyers.
That's scary. That scares me.
That scares me too.
Well,
Because
and that's, thank
then
you.
after that, she's like, you just, wow, Briggs, what are we supposed to do from there?
Well, and that's my next question to you. I can say that about you. I know you, I know both of you too well, and I've known you too long, and while you have appropriate egos, you would never describe yourselves in that fashion. But I will tell you, and I am being very honest, you are in that handful of special lawyers. So let me ask you, having given you that softball down the middle of the plate, why would two really, really good lawyers who have excelled, why the hell would you agree to be here this evening and reveal yourself? So let me pick on you, Ray.
As I recall, you threatened me, but no,
Scared you shitless?
Scared me shitless. No, I think it's a really important topic because I remember when I started out, I was so intent on being such a hardcore trial lawyer that, you know, not only was I never going to make a mistake, but if I did, no one would ever know because I had to come across as perfect. And I had to not just be good at my job, but be intimidating. And who knows whether I was good at that or not, or whether I succeeded, but I know in retrospect, it took an emotional toll on me. And who knows, maybe I'd still be married if I wasn't like that. So I just think, you know, we have this idea that we have to appear a certain way. And I've seen some lawyers who are normal, down-to-earth people, and then they walk into the courtroom and they start playing a character because they think this is what lawyers have to look like. This is what lawyers have to sound like. But it's not being genuine. And not only does that take a toll on your case, because I think jurors don't connect with you if you're not being genuine, but it takes a toll on you emotionally, you know, to not be able to be yourself. You know me, Briggs, I'm pretty inappropriate most of the time.
Oh, really?
So I think if I tried to hide that a lot, it would be very difficult for me. Thanks, Denise. But I agreed to do it because I think it's an important thing to talk about because we're in this profession where we have expectations and we think that if we show who we really are, that we're real people, that we have real problems, that come to work with us, that our opponents are going to think we're weak or they're going to use it against us. And you know, that kind of thinking can really get you spinning into a spiral where you spend too much time worrying about that and not enough time worrying about, am I taking care of my client? Am I living life the way I want to live life? And at the end of the day, you got to ask yourself, am I happy? Because so many lawyers I see are unhappy. And it's not really because they hate being lawyers. It's not really because they hate their practice. It's that we have all these external pressures. And I say they're external, but they're really internal. They're things that we put on ourselves. And they take their toll. So that's why I agreed to it.
And Denise, let me follow up a little bit on what Ray's just said. I hear him saying that, I guess one of the thoughts that was going through Pam's and my mind is that here we are, we're asking you to open up, to be vulnerable in front of folks. What I hear Ray saying is that that's maybe an important thing to do, that maintaining some facade or not being able to open up is not something that is good for us or good for you. So maybe kind of the same question to you, but why the hell are you here? Why would you let down in front of all
The easy answer, I remember where I was when I got your email. I was just about to interview Judge Reeb, I think in Clovis, and I got an email from you. I saw your two names. I had no idea what you were asking me to do, but the fact that it was the two of you, I just said yes. Because I've known you since before I became a lawyer. You were very good to me. I've known Ray since the 90s. And I thought, if these two gentlemen want to do something that they think is going to make a difference, I want to be part of that. But then when I realized what I was going to be doing, I thought that is terrific. Because when I became a lawyer 26 years ago, I thought I needed to be more like a man. I needed to look older because I was 26 years old, I think, when I graduated from law school. I'm 52 now. The difference when I was 26 to now is a different planet. I look back at the clothes that I wore. I was really trying to be somebody that I wasn't. I was trying to be somebody that I thought other people thought female lawyers should look like. And it was so uncomfortable for me because when I'm not mediating now, I'm helping my 72-year-old mother out at a ranch and helping her do ranch things. I have so many different hats that I wear that what I have learned, and I see some young lawyers here, young female lawyers, is if I can give you any advice, start off being yourself, because really that's what you always want, is you just want people to like you. You want people to like you for who you are. If you walk into the courtroom and pretend to be somebody you're not, what an uncomfortable place for so many years of your life. If you think about it, 26 years, if I didn't finally get it, that I just needed to be myself, I could have been very miserable for all that time.
Okay. Does that generate any questions from any of the women lawyers in the audience? Let me, and I'm a little, in this world, I always get a little uncomfortable not wanting to ask the wrong question.
Well, for example, when I got here, he's like, Denise, is that hair new? and I said, Briggs, when you knew me, I was a brunette, but the grayer I get, the more blonde I get, because I'm not ready to go full-blown gray, which I would be almost all gray-headed if I didn't color my hair. So feel free to ask whatever you want, Briggs.
Okay. Well, now that you've exposed that I always ask the wrong question.
Bring it.
That's okay. Well, you said a moment ago, you said when you began that you were not to be a man, but you were fitting into a man's profession. Was that a struggle for you as a woman lawyer 26 years ago?
Oh, it was just terrible. I was so grateful that I met who's now a federal magistrate, Carmen Garza. And she had been practicing for 10 years probably. So she's been practicing for 36 years. And she and I became friends, and we talked about the struggle that it was to be ourselves because we were afraid that people wouldn't accept who we are. She and I would ride motorcycles on the weekend. We had, we wore leather pants, and we really we looked very, very different. And then we showed up for court, and I looked like I could be selling copiers for IBM or something. which was very not my personality. And she told me she went through the same thing, and she said, just stop it. Just stop it right now, save yourself a whole lot of grief. And that was really good advice.
So you reached out and talked to someone.
Oh my goodness, I did.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about that in a moment. And maybe along the same lines, let me ask maybe Ray. And again, here I've set you guys on the pedestal of the really, really, really good lawyers who, I guess from some of our perspectives, I would think maybe you never get scared, but has Ray Vargas been scared as a lawyer?
Quite often. I can't tell you, I don't know what it is. Every time I have an appellate argument, even if it's, like in front of our Supreme Court, I know them all personally, I argued in front of them before, it never fails. I have to pee about 15 times immediately before the argument because I'm trying not to look nervous, but inside I'm like, oh my God. And so
why are you nervous?
I don't know. I'm worried about looking stupid. I'm worried about, them having expectations of me that I don't live up to. Part of the problem of being the young, hard-charging lawyer is I was able to develop a reputation pretty early in my career, but that means every time I go to court, I feel the pressure to perform at that level. I can't have a bad day. At least I don't, that's how my mind works. Even knowing that we all have bad days. We all have days where no matter how hard we try, we're just not feeling a certain way, or my brain isn't working the way I want it to. But I just feel all this pressure that, if I have a bad day in court, it's going to get around that, what's wrong with Ray,
Wow.
So, yeah, I get scared a lot. And mind you, there is not a week where I don't wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking, oh shit, what did I do in that case? Or did I blow this deadline? Mm-hmm. So it happens a lot.
How does Ray Vargas deal with?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I become even more type A anal retentive.
I know the answer to that. You and I both are over-preparers.
Yeah.
That is how we deal with the fright.
Yep.
Both of us. I know.
Yeah.
So you get scared?
All the time. Oh, I think I took my first doctor's deposition 30 days after passing the bar, because the reason Angel Sainz hired me is because he was too busy and he needed somebody to start trying cases. My first deposition was with Tom Sandonaugh. I was so frightened. When I opened the door to the deposition, Joe's court reporting, I could see my hand shaking. So yes, I think I was scared every day out of my mind for the first 5 years of practice.
Have you, you over-prepare. Have there been occasions when you have let yourself down, let your expectations down? When you've failed in your mind?
I probably say all the time. That's whenever I was literally in 5 states in 7 days, when I was doing trucking cases. And just to try to do all of that, I would wake up the next day, wake up at 3 in the morning and go, why didn't I ask that question? Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? I second-guessed myself every solitary day for 5 years, probably.
Okay. When I ask you to say a little bit more about yourself, and you talked about the fact that you were a recovering, or you've now retired, left the practice of law, and I sense that you don't miss the practice of law. Does any of what you experienced, what you've told us about, did that having to do with you saying enough's enough?
No, what I was in a case for 8 years that we spent like $1.5 million of our own dollars litigating. We answered, I don't know how many thousands of motions from 4 different law firms. And there's so many of my clients that died who represented 101 people. It didn't feel good anymore. I didn't feel like I was making a difference anymore. And so I said, well, what can I do that will make me have that feeling again? That's being a mediator. I help people every day not have to go to trial.
Ray?
I don't know, I'm still in it.
Why?
There are days, well, and you asked Denise, were there times when you over-preparing didn't do it? And what I used to say, and I still believe it, is I've had some of the happiest days of my life in a courtroom. And I've also had some of the saddest days of my life in a courtroom. And the saddest days are the ones where it just didn't turn out the way I thought it was going to. And I put so much pressure on myself to make something happen. But at the end of the day, you have to realize that you can't make up the facts. You can't control those. You can't control your clients and how they're going to testify in court. You can prepare them. You can prepare them ad nauseum. But at the end of the day, once they're up there, it's out of your control. And so one of the hardest things for me is to accept the things that I can't control. And realize that if things go badly, it may not be my fault.
Ray says something that to me is important. And Ellie Warenko's in the audience, and she and I work together, and she's heard me say it too many times. But I've called you guys really, really, really good lawyers. I've heard Ray say...
Stop it.
Yeah, please.
No.
Creeping me out, Briggsy.
Sadly, you are. You're stuck with it. But what I hear Ray saying, and maybe I haven't heard you say it yet, but there is that when you are a really good lawyer, all of a sudden you set this level. Now every time you walk into a courtroom, every time you take a case, you got to make it the best. And do you agree with him? Is that a pressure?
Of course it is.
Do
And
you-
it's a frustrating thing, even now as a mediator, because that is my expectation. If you have the privilege of practicing law, and I think it's a privilege, and people put all their trust in you, then you need to be that. They don't care if you're sick. They don't care if your children are sick, your dog's sick, your mom needs you to take her to the hospital. They hired you to handle their problem, and they don't really want to see sausage be made. They just want the end product. I take that responsibility very seriously.
Can you do what I hear? I hear Ray saying something that I think is incredibly healthy, and that is looking at life and saying, looking at the practice of law, looking at a case, walking into a courtroom on a case. I can't control that judge. I can't control what a witness might say. I can't control what the opposing counsel is going to do. Are you able to were you able to let go of those things and say to Denise Torres, I'm a really, really, really good lawyer, but sometimes I can't shine shit? Were you able to do that, or was that something difficult for you to do?
It took me a very long time to that serenity prayer to finally say, okay, I cannot control the weather today. I have to just deal with things as they come to me. And eventually, after many, many years, I was better at it. I would never say that I just accepted it.
Yeah, you really can't. Even just being aware of it, it's a big step. But to this day, if my client does poorly in a deposition, I'll blame myself for it. I'll think I didn't prep them enough, or I didn't think of that question and tell them they were going to get that question.
You're not being fair with yourself, though, are you?
No, but that's just, it's so ingrained. It's so ingrained that it's really hard to break that cycle.
How healthy is that for Ray Vargas?
Probably not very.
Okay.
But at least I'm at a point where I can recognize it now that there are things outside of my control and they're not my fault.
You say you recognize it. Are there ways that you say it to all of us here tonight? If you walk into a courtroom tomorrow, will you be able to do that? And if not, what could Ray Vargas do to say, it's okay, you've heard me talk about A students and C students.
It's okay to be a C student?
It's okay, can you get a
No.
C?
No, I still can't. I think that the healthiest thing I've done, and I can't take credit for it, I've had a lot of therapy. The healthiest thing I've done and can do is when I'm feeling that way, recognize it and say, you know what, you really couldn't control that. You know, I know you wanted to. I remember one time I had a questionable juror, and Diego Zamora was helping me pick the jury, and Diego was a master at picking juries, and he had a mastery of the English language in a way that is not appropriate for today's discussion. But he told me why not to take this juror, and I just thought that I was going to charm the hell out of her. So I kept her, and she ended up being the foreman of the jury, and she ended up sticking it to us for the exact reason that she told me she was going to stick it to us in voir dire.
Okay, so what would you say to all of us? You both have identified this, and you've been very candid, saying, "I know this is not the best thing for me." What could Denise do to? What tools are available? What things could you do? You mentioned Judge Garza. You talked to someone. You reached out and asked for help. Can a Denise Torres or a Ray Vargas, the really good lawyers, can you get down off your pedestals and talk to someone and say, "I'm scared"?
Oh my gosh, I am so fortunate to have friends like Ray Vargas that when I get scared, which is often, I would call Ray, or I would call some of my other friends and said, "I'm really scared about this." And they would talk me through it, and I'd feel better. So I have always been somebody that if I knew who to reach out to, I'm not afraid to ask for help. But whenever I was younger, I didn't know all these trial lawyers that I know now. I wasn't a member of the Trial Lawyers Association. I was by myself in Las Cruces trying not to embarrass my boss, which was on Health Signs, trying not to let my clients down, and I just didn't know what to do then. I absolutely know what to do now. And I've been appointed through the Supreme Court and the Disciplinary Board to try to help rehabilitate lawyers, not necessarily just young lawyers, but lawyers who have lost their way. There's only been one where I've been able to tell the Disciplinary Board, I think this person, this lawyer can be saved. The other ones, I've said, I believe if they hold on to their license, they will continue to hurt people. And it's interesting just because I'm tasked with go figure it out. Go meet these people, go to their offices and figure out what the problem is. And the one that I could recommend that he can be saved, he was just overwhelmed when I asked him, can I please see your files? And he said, oh yes, they're over there in this file cabinet. And he had to give me a list of all the files he had, and I'd say, well, I would like to see this file. And he had all kinds of DR, immigration, criminal. I couldn't do that. There's no way that I'm competent to do all those things. So he was very insecure about showing me a file, and so I asked him, can I just go to your cabinet? And I went and looked in the cabinet, there was no files. I said, okay, jig's up, where's the files? And they were in a garage, just boxes of documents where I thought I was going to have a heart attack, but I had to be calm because I was there to instill confidence in him. Well, we figured out he couldn't be a sole practitioner. He was bipolar, he had other things, he wasn't taking his medication. He was so overwhelmed with the simplest things that we decided, let's get you on your medication, let's get you a job where you don't have to think about all these things. And he called me unbelievably last night. to tell me that he had tried his first case. And I no longer have to watch over him. He's cleared, he's got his license back, he's fine. Everyone has an issue. There's everyone, I mean, as far as something that makes you nervous or anxious. And I would say figure that out and ask somebody to help you.
Okay. Let me ask Ray, because he mentioned Diego. And I know the friendship that existed between Ray and Diego. Was Diego a resource? Are there other people? What advice would you give to me or to anyone that's here today about what you would do in terms of asking for help, along the lines of what Denise is?
Yeah, I think it's really important just to have a core group of people that you trust. And for me, it's helpful to talk to people that I think are better lawyers than me. And it was really hard to do at first because I thought they would judge me, or that, you know, I was somehow letting on that I wasn't as good as I thought or they think I am. But I've got a good core group of friends who are great trial lawyers that I can just call up and say, am I stupid? You know, am I just not getting this, or should I be afraid of this? And we all do it for each other. And it's just so nice to have people that you respect, that you know are really good lawyers, who you can just call up and say, I think I'm having an irrational fear. What do you think?
Much along the lines of the first question I asked both of you is, you know, why the hell would you be here tonight? You know, the super lawyers, why would you let down? What I hear both of you saying, and you said it initially, Denise, is that you really do need to reach out and ask for help. And that's okay. Mm-hmm. It's even okay for you guys.
Do it all the time.
Okay.
It's imperative.
Let me ask you and if you don't want to answer this question, just say so.
I already don't.
I know. How has some of what you've told us tonight, how has it impacted you, manifested itself in your life, whether it be health, other reasons? I'll just pick on you.
Okay.
I know you said,
I mean,
you
knew me when I was a young lawyer, and you knew I was in the office from 7 to 7 every day, even if it was a Saturday. Briggs always used to come into my office at 7 o'clock in the morning, and he'd say, if you're not careful, you're going to make partner, and then you're really screwed. And he was right. He was 100% right. But I used to have, my therapist used to quote the deodorant commercial, never let them see you sweat. And I used to have that attitude, that it doesn't matter what the situation was, I was never going to show weakness, fear, whatever. And
it's better look good than feel good.
That's right. I used to love that skit, by the way. and I don't know if it was that or if it was the work I was doing because I was unhappy doing the defense work. But I mean, I was 28 years old and got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis and was sick for years. And they don't know what causes colitis. They just they think it can be stress. They think it can be some other autoimmune disorder. But oddly enough, when I changed my practice and I started representing people instead of corporations, and I became my own boss and quit trying to impress the Louise Stelzners of the world, suddenly I got better. And my doc told me, he's like, this stuff can go away. We don't know. And I really haven't been sick for 12 years now. And I don't know if they're related or not, but I quit keeping so much in and trying to, put on this facade of, my ex-wife used to joke that I always wear expensive suits, and she'd say, they're like your armor, aren't they? You're trying to put your armor on so that, people can't hurt you.
Is that true?
Probably. There's probably some truth to it. I mean, I just like nice clothes. But yeah, I mean, we have this fear of letting people know that we're human. And it takes a toll, and it can be an emotional toll, it can be a physical toll, it can be both. And I think I experienced it when I was young, and when you're young, you don't know what the hell's going on. You think you're invincible anyway.
Denise, how about you?
There's people that know me really well know this. I have a younger sister who's a recovering methamphetamine addict, alcoholic, suffers from severe mental illness, and I've dealt with that since she was 9. So I've probably got her out of every jail in 4 states. I've probably been in every mental institution in 4 states. And there's a reason I don't have children. It's because I'm still raising one. And the pressure of that and the pressure of being a young lawyer and the pressure of trying to help my family deal with all of the reckless and terrible things that she did, I definitely drank too much. And then I rode motorcycles. I didn't do them both at the same time, but I remember I had a Ducati, and there was one day I looked down and I was going over 100 miles an hour, and I thought, this is just wrong and dangerous, and you need to stop doing these extreme things to get your mind off of all of my normal everyday life. So I got rid of the Ducati and started riding slower bikes, Harley Davidsons, and I would still have them. I don't ride them anymore. But then I decided, okay, you cannot come home every day and read depositions and drink wine until you fall asleep. So I do yoga now. And I try to run at least 7 miles a day. I still drink wine, but I don't drink nearly like I used to. I think wine was my muse. I thought I would draft better deposition questions if I had wine. And so now when I get home, I do yoga, and then I'll have a glass of wine. But just doing something to, and now I tend to put as much pressure. Like the other day, I got a position paper at 11 o'clock at night, and I had lawyers flying in from New York and Lubbock and adjusters from the same places, and I wasn't going to be prepared because I got a position paper from the plaintiff at 11 o'clock at night with 200 pages. So I got up at 4 in the morning, and I read everything, and when I got there, all the lawyers said, well, none of us are prepared. I said, well, I am. But there's no one that would expect for me to do that but me. So when I got home that day, I was extremely tired, and I did yoga, and I felt great, and it's healthier than what I was doing before. So all of this is learned behaviors, because I know what my tendencies are. My tendencies are to overdo everything.
I'm a little distressed to learn about the Ducati and 100 miles an hour. I've ridden one time with Ray Vargas in his Porsche, which I'll never do again.
Oh, that.
So there must be something about being really, really, really good lawyers and going really, really fast. So you both have seen what this can do to you. And Pam, these are always kind of corny things, but Pam had a slide before we got started here from Bob Carlson, who's the immediate past president of the ABA, who I have met, and it really is, he's from South Dakota, North Dakota, just some, Montana, yeah. I mean, he's just kind of a real guy. But he did make the statement recently, to be an ethical, competent lawyer, you first need to be a healthy lawyer. Now, it is kind of corny, but let me ask you, it sounds to me like you give a nod of approval that, yeah, it's good to be healthy, but I'm going to drive myself into the ground. I mean, let me ask you, do you reach out to professionals?
Yeah. I resisted it for a really long time.
Why?
Because it's another one of those things where you're like, oh, there must be something wrong with me. I must be weak. And I actually came to it in a roundabout way. My wife and I had been married for 12 or 15 years at the time, and we were starting to have the kinds of problems that you have when you're married for 12 to 15 years. And we went to marriage counseling, and that turned out to be a complete disaster. But I thought, I kind of like talking to somebody about this stuff. So I found a good therapist and went weekly for about 3 or 4 years and learned a lot about myself, learned about some of the things I've been talking about today, some of the things I now claim to recognize about myself, or like I said, I can't take credit for it. Somebody recognized it for me, or at least helped me recognize it. And then I read a book by a guy named Rick Friedman. Rick is a infamous plaintiff's trial lawyer. He lives in Alaska now, but he has more 9-figure verdicts than anybody on the planet. Rick is just a superstar trial lawyer. And he wrote a book called On Being a Lawyer. And one of the things, he has a whole chapter about therapy and says, if you're going to be a good trial lawyer, you have to understand yourself before you can understand other people and how they react to you. And I thought, you know, Rick Friedman can see a therapist. I guess, you know, shitty little Albuquerque lawyer me can swallow his pride and do it. And so it was kind of helpful to hear that there were other people who were really, I mean, really successful lawyers saying, you kind of need to do this. And
You, Denise, you agree?
I agree.
You said yoga. Does Denise Torres do anything else? Does she?
I definitely, try to do 7 miles of running a day and yoga. I still drink my wine. My friendships, even though I don't have time to spend with people, I text just little things, just really try to stay connected with people other than, and I see people every day, all day, with my mediation practice. And some people can be incredibly, incredibly difficult.
why are you looking at me when you say that?
Yeah, mediating for you is a big challenge, Mr. Vargas. So you definitely, I got therapy not to help me with my practice, but before my father died, he was really leaning on me for things that I didn't think were fair, in addition to me having to deal with my sister, and I have a younger brother who is a former heroin addict. And so before I went home for the holidays, I was dreading it. I was like, can't I just go try a case? then go home for the holidays. And so I called a few friends of mine, and I went to go see a therapist to treat me, to help me with coping skills of how do I deal with people who, when you walk in the door, don't say hello, how are you, I hope you're well. It's, will you pay for this? Here's a bill for this. And it became just awful to deal with it. And so I did reach out to a professional, and he helped me set some things up where I could help them. But when I walked in the door, they would actually acknowledge that I was a human being instead of a bank account. And my life is better for that all the way around. And I know there's a lot of lawyers that I know that go through that. There's ways to make it better.
What I thought of when you read that quote, a healthy lawyer, I thought, I bet if you asked every person in this room, what does it mean to be a healthy lawyer, you'd probably get a bunch of different answers.
No, what is a healthy lawyer to Ray Vargas?
It's probably not Ray Vargas. One thing that I've never been able to do, and that I have absolutely admired in some of my friends, is have a work-life balance. I've got a friend, Don Vigil, who's a very good plaintiff's lawyer, but Don goes fishing more than anybody I know. And he paints, and he's got kids and grandkids, and he actually spends time with them.
Why can't Ray Vargas do that?
Well, first of all, I don't have any kids or grandkids, and I don't really know how to fish.
And he doesn't know how to paint.
No, I can't paint. But I don't know. I've never been able to find, because, Denise mentioned, and she's like this too, we can't just do things a little bit. We have to do them 1,000%, completely immerse ourselves in them. So I've never been able to just take a step back and try to do something a little bit. That's my goal in life someday. Figure out how to do something a little bit.
So I guess a question that was on our list, and maybe I already said it, but we did share, Pam and I came up with these questions and shared them with Denise and Ray in advance. We didn't talk with them about it, but so these are not total surprises. But I hear you saying, I mean, you know what what you're not struggling with, but you know
My problems.
No, not even problems. You know who you are. You've
Yeah.
learned. Ray Vargas is fair to say you've learned who Ray Vargas is.
Yeah, I think so.
If you could give advice to your, if you could go back, what advice would you give to Ray Vargas? What, and I'm now, this is not fair. I mean, you are very happy, I think. Is Ray Vargas happy with who he is?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
You like the nice clothes.
I do. I mean, I like my stuff, and
Okay, no.
and I like, you know, I talked about, you know, going to court and having these high expectations. I like meeting them. You know, I like it when I have a good day in court and I, you know, hear through the grapevine that the judge went back and told his secretary that I just really kicked butt in court that day, and I like that. I do. But I also recognize that if I'm not practicing law and doing what I'm doing, I don't really have a whole lot. You know, I talk about retirement someday.
Oh, please.
I don't know what I do. I don't golf, I don't fish, I don't have kids. So if I were to go back and say, what would I do differently, I would probably try to have more of a life outside of work.
Stamp collecting.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. I mean, I have a big life out of work.
Yeah.
Just because I have my mom and I've got the ranch and I've got
And you travel a lot.
travel, but I love working. I absolutely
But you-
love it.
But there's other things.
I do. I do lots of different things.
Let me share something that I sometimes, I'm not as driven as the two of you, but I often find myself looking at my life and saying, geez, I'm really disappointed in my life. And then if I stop and say it's a weekend, say it's a Sunday night, and I'm thinking, gosh, what have I done this weekend and whatnot? If I go back and look at what I've done over the course of 2 days, I surprise myself. Sometimes I'm too hard on myself. I think, well, gosh, I got up and, you know, most people know here I'm a recovering drunk. I'll go to my morning Saturday meeting, and I may go stop and get a good cup of coffee at the Roosevelt Park, at the whatever, and I may run a couple errands, or I may take a bike ride. And if I hear you both, maybe Ray more than Denise, I hear you being a little hard on yourself. Maybe because you're a driven person, but maybe there's more to your life than, I mean, you like your clothes, you like your cars, you like...
You might be giving me more credit.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't want to be, I hear you being a little hard on yourself, but you do get a lot out of being who Ray Vargas is, and you doing a good job.
I do. I wish I just had more outside of that. And it's kind of a vicious cycle because, you know, you're starting out, you're trying to make a name for yourself, so you're really hard charging and working hard. And then the next thing you know, that's just, you know, you wake up 20 years later and you're still doing that.
There's one thing that really helps me, and it's being grateful. I bought a place at 6th and Central, and every morning when I leave, my garage is on the alley between 5th and 6th Street. And I see every solitary morning people that are homeless, people that clearly are suffering from addiction or mental illness. But there's this one man that works at Lindy's. He can barely walk. He's hunched over. I don't know how old he is, but he looks like he's 75 years old. And every morning I see him dragging his trash can bigger than him out to the alley, and I just lose it every time I see him because I think, oh dear God, I am so lucky. I have so much. Even though I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning, I get to do this. So being grateful has helped me tremendously.
You look a little emotional. Why?
Because that little old man,
You thinking about it?
I see him every day.
Is that not a tool?
Of course it is.
Aren't those the things that all of us, I think, sometimes, I mean, you are actually emotional. And that's, all of us would say, the really good lawyers can't be that. We can't shed a tear. We can't feel grateful, but you do, don't you?
That brings me to one of my favorite stories of the first case I tried, and it was Judge Beal. And my client, he didn't even have a 4th grade education, but he had worked for his dad, and they put in the fire extinguishers, and he knew it well. He could barely, he didn't speak very well, very shy, but he got hurt, and he had back surgery, and he couldn't work, and the entire family depended on him. And when I had him on the stand, my voice cracked like this. And that very experienced lawyer said, mistrial. And I was like, oh my God, I just messed up so bad. I just ruined this case. I just, like, oh my God. And Judge Beal said to the defense lawyers, the day that you lose compassion is the day you shouldn't be a lawyer anymore. Carry on, Miss Torres. And I was just like, the little things. Thank you, Judge Beal.
It's okay to be human.
It's okay to be human.
And you make me think, I was at Diego's service when Diego Zamora died, and you did the eulogy, and I wrote you a letter that night because I was so touched. I can't remember what I said, except that I saw Ray Vargas I hadn't seen before.
Because I was being honest and emotional and showing the real me.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, I mean, one of the reasons that Diego and I became such good friends is he taught me that.
What did Diego Zamora teach you?
You know, he was a funny guy because...
And maybe I should stop you and just tell those who don't know, Diego Zamora was one of he would be in the category of the really, really, really good lawyers. Diego struggled with addiction, the disease of addiction, lost his license, got it back.
Lost it again.
Lost it again.
Got it back.
His father, Matt Zamora, who died recently, they used to call him the king of torts. I mean, they were the Zamora family, and their progeny are still around. But he was an incredible guy. But so what did Diego teach you?
When I first met him, I didn't think he was a lawyer. Because you would have never guessed, talking to him, that he was raised by a lawyer, that he had gone to Georgetown Law School, because he just talked like a regular person. And sometimes that made him appear or seem like lower class. But when we got in a courtroom and he was trying to pick a jury, they were more honest with him than I've ever seen jurors be with any lawyer. He could connect with people on such a level, and it was because he was, he had days where something upset him, he'd start crying. He wore his heart on his sleeve, and it made him a real person. And it just made me think, why do we spend so much time trying not to be real people? You know? Why do I wear the expensive suits? Am I trying to be someone I'm not? And I just saw how effective it was as a lawyer, but then also just Diego was just such a real person. You couldn't help but love the guy.
And what did you do for Ray Vargas? For Diego Zamora?
I mean, what did I do for him? What did he get out of it?
No, you did a lot for Diego. What did Ray Vargas get out of helping a lawyer when he was dying of terminal cancer?
That's a good question. That's a tough question. Because
That's why I ask it.
I'm still feeling it. You know, the anniversary of his death is next week. And I miss him like crazy. But I guess what I got out of it was, and I went through this a little bit when my dad was dying of cancer too. You realize that all of our fancy titles, fancy clothes, position in society don't mean anything when you can't wipe your own butt. Yeah. And we all end up that way someday.
But when the end was drawing nearer and nearer, you and Justice Thompson, you gave Diego some of the things in life that he deserved. Why did Ray Vargas do that? Why did the really, really, really good lawyer why does he do that?
I don't know, because I guess at the end of the day, we're real people, or at least we should be.
Okay.
And we're social animals. You can't live alone. You need other people in your life, and if you have someone that you are that close to or feel that connected to, I think you have a healthier, happier life. And, you know, like I said, I helped Diego a lot through a lot of things. When you got him his license back the second time, I had to supervise him for 2 or 3 years, which felt kind of awkward because he was twice the lawyer I was, and I was supervising him. But I learned a lot from it, too. So.
And you both have talked about having compassion, helping others. Does that blow your hair back? Is that good for you?
Yeah, it's everything.
Yeah.
For me, it's everything.
So you really are human.
I really am.
You're really, really, really good lawyers, okay?
No.
Have you ever, we just talked about Diego, and maybe that's not where I'm going with this question, but you mentioned it a little bit ago, Denise, about helping lawyers that struggle with the disciplinary counsel's office. Do either one of you, have you seen lawyers who you thought they're really in trouble?
I'm actually going to call you about someone that is a good lawyer, and in the last 6 months, this lawyer has had a total of $15,000 of sanctions against the lawyer personally, and I was just sent an opinion, not published yet, where this lawyer's case was dismissed from federal court for discovery abuse. And there's no reason for this lawyer, for any of this to be happening. Because this person is a smart, caring, conscientious person. And I have informally said, okay, I know you. These things aren't okay. What can I do to help? Oh, Denise, I know that I need to get things under control. I just need to get a paralegal. I just need to do this. But it keeps happening. And I don't know what to do at this point, but it's just so sad to watch somebody with so much potential on an absolute downward spiral. And I don't think this person is going to be able to fix it all by his or herself. So do you have any recommendations?
Well, we throw out the pitch for the Judges and Lawyers Assistance Program. That's kind of what we're about. And tonight is about, this is a new thing for us. We used to, everyone thinks the Judges and Lawyers Assistance Program is about drunks and addicts and there was a time maybe when that's what it was all about. But tonight is talking about something else, and we get into those areas. But I guess what I hear you saying, and one of the things would like the message we want to go out is that, yeah, you need to. You tried, you couldn't help, but you need to. Sometimes you have to call somebody else, and that's. But we can't. I think giving up on people. I mean, tonight is our opportunity to say to the members of the bar, it's okay to be afraid. And that's part of the message. And maybe I was going to ask this at the end, but let me ask you, how does it feel to be sitting here tonight? I mean, I do know you both. I don't see you that often, but I know you well, and I count you as close friends. You seem both touched by this. Maybe I'm being a little dramatic, but I mean, does this feel good tonight?
It's scary.
Yeah, I was going to say it's terrifying.
Are you scared shitless?
Yeah, I was today. I was thinking about this all day going, why the hell did I agree to do that?
So I kept thinking, well, maybe they canceled it because there was not going to be a lot of participation. I kept looking and seeing if Pam was going to send me an email. So no, it's pretty frightening to lay bare things that are so personal, but it is who I am, and that's one of my favorite things that I was just talking to you about, to somebody who was born in 1990. 1990, when I graduated from high school in 1985, and it just absolutely shocks me. So there's a lovely thing about being a woman of a certain age. You become much more comfortable with yourself. It's a really happy place to be, not having to worry about all these things that just don't matter.
Okay. Well, you do seem touched. I'm seeing, I see it. You don't, Denise doesn't hide as well as you do. But I know you well enough, and
Yeah.
I think back to Diego's service, and there is another side to both of you, and which I've always seen and always liked.
Well, you know, and it's still, even now, after years of therapy, it's still hard to acknowledge that you have feelings. I mean, I used to say, I don't get stressed out. But then things would happen in my life. Either I'd get sick or I'd drink too much or whatever, and I recognized I was feeling stress. Because I was denying it, it was coming out in other ways. It's going to come out.
Pretty Woman that where they're in the tub and he says, it took 10 years of therapy for me able to say, I'm really angry with my father.
Yeah.
I'm really angry with
Yeah.
my father.
It took years of therapy for me to say, you know what, I think I actually do get stressed out sometimes. I think this job stresses me out. Instead of sitting there going, no, I don't get stressed out. Not
I'm
worried.
fine.
I'm fine.
So
Let's go.
you acknowledge this. What advice would you give yourself?
Probably that I needed to acknowledge it a lot sooner
Okay.
and just recognize that, we all feel stress, especially in our jobs. And I know that there are folks that do transactional law, but even that is very stressful. We have difficult jobs. And recently I read an article about how lawyers are now surpassing surgeons for suicide rates. And one of the quotes in the article was that, being a lawyer is like being a surgeon. You're trying to save the patient, only there's another doctor in the room trying to kill him at the same time. That's a little stressful.
That's great, right?
Yeah, and that's what being a trial lawyer is. I'm trying to win my case, and the other guy is trying to kill my case. And, to say that that's not stressful is just unrealistic. But we do it because we think we have to be badasses.
And maybe you've answered this, but how do you deal with the stress? I mean, I hear you know it, you thrive on it a little bit, but how do you deal with it?
In varying ways. I mean, I haven't been as good lately, but as Denise pointed out, exercise helps a lot. It really does.
You're kind of a gardener.
What was that?
She's giving me a hard time because I actually started growing tomatoes this year. I don't do yard work, Briggs.
This is being recorded.
I know.
You want that,
I know.
I'm not sure we want that out in the public.
I know.
You're growing tomatoes?
Growing tomatoes.
I bought him some fertilizer because if he's going to be a tomato gardener, I want him to be the very best tomato gardener on his block.
I don't think any records are in fear of being broken at the moment, but at least I'm trying.
So you branched out.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
It's good. I mean, it's fun to do different things, I think. It's fun to push yourself a little bit. I remember Briggs likes to do this a lot, just so you know. There was a time where Briggs, for a whole month, tried to put his belt on the opposite way. Just to see if he could do it, if his brain could conform to it. I don't think he even succeeded, but you tried.
No. Well, tomorrow morning when you put your underwear on, try putting your right foot in before your left foot, or vice versa.
Can't do it.
Well, you get to be my age, it gets dangerous, but we won't go there. No, there is. We know there's anxiety, depression, addiction, whatnot in our profession. What I hear you all saying, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure you would change that. I'm going to pick a little more on Ray. I think Denise has maybe made some changes in your life.
I have.
You recognize him. Ray hasn't.
I'm still unstable, so go for it.
Well, let me. You mentioned seeing a therapist. Do you see a therapist? I mean, is this something in the past, or is that a tool you use today?
It is in the past, but not by choice. I would like to continue to use it. My therapist retired. I think I probably ruined his life with all of my whining. I need to find another one, but.
So that's something you recommend?
I would definitely recommend that, but because of the tools that I learned in therapy, I'm able to still kind of continue on that healthy path. It's not to say we don't fall into our old patterns, especially in this job, because it's so easy.
And I am a self-helper, I think. I have read what is my favorite one? Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. It's a little book.
Oh,
And I've given that to all of my family. I've given it to friends because it's just the little things sometimes in a day when you're very stressed out. If you just take something simple and utilize it. So I definitely try to help myself every possible way that I can.
and you mentioned gratitude. Grateful.
Gratitude is probably my biggest helper. And I'm surrounded in my own family with people who suffer addiction, who just suffer. I mean, they literally wake up every day and are in pain from something, whether it be up here. My mom suffers from arthritis. I mean, I see all of them, and I'm grateful every day. Those people that I travel when I leave to go to work every day that are suffering, sleeping on the street, talking to themselves. There was one day where this, fairly what I thought was a young person just ripping his clothes off. Obviously, something is wrong with him. And my heart breaks every time I see them. Because I have a sister like that. She's very, very lucky that she has a family that loves her, and she would never be on the street. There's times I would like to throw her there, but that's not going to happen. So gratitude is, I think people don't utilize that tool enough. Because I think everybody in this room, we're in this room because we're fortunate enough to be able to have a profession where we can take care of our families, we can help other people. There's so many things that we get to do because of our profession. If you go, like the gentleman who takes the trash out at Lindy's every day, what is his opportunity to help people? He doesn't have those, he's not going to be able to feel the way that we have an opportunity to feel because of the difference that we can make in people's lives.
And that, I agree with you. I will find myself on a bad day. I will walk out in the parking lot and I will stop and I will think about all the things that are to be grateful for. And we all do. And it's amazing, that tool, that little simple tool.
It's a huge one.
It's a huge, it's a, in the world of 12-step recovery, which, that's where I live because of who I am. But we all have our toolboxes, and that's kind of a metaphor that 12-step folks talk about, having a toolbox with different tools in it, gratitude being one of them, acceptance being one of them. I think, Ray, you acknowledging, to hear you say that you can't control a judge, or although you do go travel to Chicago with justices, but that's that's another talk. That's something altogether. But that you can't control those folks. You can't control what opposing counsel. That to me is incredibly healthy.
Yeah, and that's another thing you learn in therapy, and that is, we all have stresses all day, every day. So let's change the things that we can. There are things you can't change, and if you keep trying, you're just going to add more stress to your life. You're going to make it more difficult. But if there are things that you can change and you can make better in your daily life, it's going to lower your stress level.
You know what you have that I don't, besides a bigger closet probably?
What's
is you have animals. I love animals, and I think they bring so much to your life.
They are a huge stress reliever.
I would love to have an animal, but it'd be too cruel because I'm never home and I don't have enough. I would need 2 animals and then I shouldn't have 1. But I think that I'm envious of those who have animals and you get to take them for a walk or you get to cuddle with them at night. And I see pictures that you post on Facebook and I'm like, ah!
There's nothing like coming home after a bad day and having a dog that is so happy to see you that she's going to explode.
Right. So, yes, that's another tool.
Yeah.
There's going to be a run on the pet store
on
tomorrow.
the pound.
Yeah.
But, so you've got, Ray can have, you've always had.
I've always had cats or dogs,
Dogs.
or now I have one of each, so yeah, they're great.
That makes a difference.
Huge difference. And they're,
The humor that you bring to me, and especially my mother, when you post pictures of your animals is just, it's the levity for that moment. And so keep posting.
Okay.
Ray, what's the best advice you've gotten from anyone in your life?
Oh man, that's a tough question.
It wasn't on the list.
I know, you're just throwing it at me.
Quit dating bad boys? No, I'm kidding. No.
That's the best advice you got? I haven't gotten that advice yet.
Me.
I don't know, that's a good question. I mean, I think the best advice I've gotten is, try to be yourself at all times.
As a lawyer and everywhere else?
Everywhere else, yeah.
Denise?
No, that's clearly it, because I was struggling with my identity when I first started practicing. It was a struggle. And now that I dress the way that I want to dress, I am exactly who I am, wherever you see me. I don't dress like this out at the ranch, but I don't ever try to be different than who I am, and it is just freeing. I should have done it when I was 27, instead of waiting until I was in my 30s or 40s.
Okay. What advice do you have for the folks in the audience? What does Ray Vargas say?
I'd probably give them the same advice. Just be yourself every day.
What about the audience? Anybody have any questions? I will tell you, you can be afraid of Denise and Ray in a courtroom, but you don't have to be afraid of them here, and I think they've told you they're human beings. Anybody have any tough questions? Ellie.
I don't think there's an answer to this question, but as Briggs said earlier, I work with Briggs every day, and I don't know how often I hear, stop being an A student, a C's okay. Do you think it's really okay to be a C student attorney? I can't get there, and I don't know if I want to be a lawyer if I have to get there. Do you have any thoughts on that? And I don't know if I can always be there, so maybe I don't want to be a lawyer. Like, what do I think about that?
I think we all want to be A lawyers, right? But no one's perfect every day. Serena Williams even loses occasionally. It happens. I think the best thing we can do is just realize that there are some days where we're not at 100%, and it's okay. It's all right. That doesn't mean you're going to be stuck there forever. Just because you're not 100% today doesn't mean you're not going to be tomorrow. And, it's just so difficult. We put all these external pressures on ourselves. And I heard someone say once that there's like this inverse proportion between how good of a lawyer you are and how hard you are on yourself. Because you see these guys who think that there's nothing wrong with them and they're the greatest, and they're usually really bad lawyers. And then really good lawyers are always beating themselves up, saying, gosh, I should have done it this way, or I should have written that in my brief. And the fact of the matter is, we're as good as we are right now.
So if we don't want to live there, there's really no hope for our legal career. Is that true?
And my advice is a little different, and I feel really strongly about this. And because of my mediation practice, I come in contact with different lawyers every day, and I have met a lot of very unhappy lawyers, incredibly unhappy lawyers. And when they ask me, well, why do you seem so happy? It's because I really like what I do. And there's been 2 lawyers in the last 2 months that have asked me to help them do something different, and not necessarily go be a fireman, but change from being a plaintiff's lawyer to a defense lawyer to a plaintiff's lawyer. I feel very strongly, if you don't like what you do, you're not going to probably be very good at it. If you like what you do, like me, I never feel like I'm really working. I literally can't wait to understand the next case, whether it was in my personal practice or now as a mediator. So I see this with a lot of young lawyers where they're struggling and they're putting so much pressure on themselves that they're not sleeping. Their wives or their husbands will say, Denise, my my spouse is an absolute nut. I would say rethink what you're doing. And if you want to do this, hopefully you'll be doing it for a long, long time. There are days when I was a trial lawyer that I would work 22 hours. I would just go home to shower to get ready for trial. That's a long time every day for many, many years to do something you hate. I face this because I interview, I think this year, or in the last year, I've interviewed over 100 judges. I can say that there are some people that are just not cut out for that job, and there's others that were absolutely born to do it. Why do those people make themselves miserable every day? I really don't know.
That's really good advice, by the way. The reason I don't work with Briggs anymore is that I didn't like being a defense lawyer. I really didn't. I mean, and I think I was good at it. I don't know.
You're the best.
I don't think that's true, but I think I
You're
was
the
good
best.
at it, but I didn't like it. And I didn't like how it made me feel. And when I finally pulled the trigger and decided to switch sides, it was like someone turned the lights on. And suddenly I saw so much more. That being said, I still put a lot of pressure on myself. I still worry about being an A student. But like Denise said, it doesn't feel like work anymore. So,
Yes.
You have a question from a webcast attendee.
Okay.
How do you deal with fear caused by bullying, threats from other lawyers?
That's a great question, Briggs. That's a great question.
And why don't you give us a great answer?
That is going to happen, and I don't care where you are, whether you're male, whether you're female, whether you're a plaintiff's lawyer, whether you're a defense lawyer, you are going to be bullied. At one time, a brand new judge, I just talked to her, and she said, there's this one lawyer that's bullying me. And I asked her, I said, well, what did you do? She said, I was so scared. I got off the bench, I went and I thought about, this is my courtroom, and I came back and I said, sir, you're not going to talk to me like that anymore. This is my courtroom. Lawyers have to handle it differently. Probably Ray, who if was ever bullied, probably handled it differently than I did. I tended to always be direct with people, and very often in my practice I was bullied from people that just met me, thought I looked too young, like would say things to me like, so where's the lawyer? Or purposely asked me to get coffee at a deposition. I'd get them coffee and say, okay, can we start now? So I'm direct, but I didn't fight back in being a bully back. I usually would comply with their stupid bullying, demeaning request, and then I would hopefully take a deposition that would make them feel really bad that they
Knock
were
her
mean
socks
to me.
off, huh?
Right, and this is one thing that I tell young lawyers now. Sometimes you're the windshield and sometimes you're the bug. When you are the windshield, remember you're gonna be the bug someday. And so don't be awful to your opponent. There's so many cases now where somebody is the bug and they say, Denise, please, can you just get my costs? And I'll go to the other side and that lawyer will say, you know, this lawyer was so mean to me at some point in my career. No, I'm going to make them go try it, or they can walk away. I've had the same thing, or I've come in, and I remember this one, said, please, defense lawyer, give me $5,000. And he said, you know, Denise, you're right. I'm going to go fight to get that, because every time that I have been the bug, this lawyer has been professional and courteous to me. So yes, I'm going to help you try to go get that money. So little things like that matter, I think, in our profession. I've been one of those that's been very, very lucky not to have a whole lot of bad things happen to me. I was bullied early on, and I haven't been in a very long time. How did you handle bullying? Differently.
Different ways over the years. I mean, Briggs can probably tell you a story when we were in a deposition one time, and me and the other guy were going to go outside. So I didn't always handle them the best way. But as I've gotten older and I've experienced other people actually some of my colleagues watching them bully other people, I've realized that behind every bully there's someone that's got something going on.
Usually somebody that's insecure,
Yeah.
and it's their problem, it's not yours, but they take
Right.
it out on everybody around them.
And sometimes if you're just kind to them, they can back off. And sometimes that doesn't work. It just makes them feel emboldened and they turn into bigger jerks. But at the same time, it's kind of nice to know that someone's always going to be the bully, because then they're predictable. And you know what to expect and you know how to react. And frankly, you can make them make mistakes, because you can goad them into bullying you on something that they really shouldn't take up. And you can turn it into a tactical mistake on their part and take advantage of it. At the end of the day, though, you know, can somebody really bully us? They can yell at you, but they can't make you do anything.
They can't eat you.
They can't eat you. They can't shoot you. You know, the only thing I think of when someone tries to bully me is I think it's really cute that you think that's going to work.
But I don't know how long the person that asked that question has been practicing law, but I just remember early on, if you don't ask for help from somebody who's been practicing law for a long, long time, you're just lost, and you feel just bad. And if you have to be in litigation with somebody who's bullying with you and you don't ask for help, or there's a friend of mine that what we say is say it out loud. To say it out loud makes it real. And when I'm talking to a friend, and there'll be times where I've been talking to Ray about something that I think is a big problem, and just saying it out loud helps me figure it out myself. But if you keep it inside, like whoever's being bullied out there, I would say talk to somebody. Call me.
Ask for help.
I'm very happy to just talk with you about it. You might, just in talking about it, come to your own idea of how you can deal with this lawyer, because there's different kind of bullies. There's bullies who will only bully you through email, but when you see them in person, they're as nice as they can be to your face.
The paper tigers.
Paper tigers. There's lawyers who will bully you to your face, and so there's all different types, and you can't treat them all the same way. And I think probably between Ray and Briggs and I, we've probably dealt with all of those people. And so just ask for help.
The one piece of advice I can give, though, is don't match them. You know, don't fight bullying with bullying, because on the few opportunities where I've caught myself feeling like I want to do that, I have to take a step back and say, you know what really pisses me off about this is that they're making me act a way that I don't want to act. But I'm giving them that power, and that's the mistake I'm making. So if you can just take a deep breath and say, you know, I'm really not going to react to this, because that's not who I am. And it goes back to, you know, just be yourself. And if you're not a bully, don't try to be a bully. If someone's trying to bully you, figure out what their problem is. You can use it to your advantage.
And also, I'm wondering, is that bullying in a deposition, or is that bullying in another venue? Because in a deposition, I have always just tried to ignore whatever antics that the person is doing, especially when their deposition is going very poorly. They'll start objecting, coaching, and just I really try to make that person a non-factor, especially if it's a videotape deposition, and just focus at the task at hand. Eventually the person will recognize that they're not going to throw you off your game, and they'll stop. For those that don't, then you have a transcript with this ridiculousness going on, and you can use it at a different time. But I agree, don't be a bully back. I don't think that's ever going to get you anywhere.
Well, we're over our time. I'm going to make a shameless recommendation because Denise and Ray just mentioned reaching out and getting help. In the audience today is Elizabeth Phillips, who is on the JLAP committee and is a lawyer in Santa Fe, and her profession is helping lawyers look at what they're doing, and she's a great resource, and if anyone's interested, let us know and we'll try and direct you that way.
I'm going to call her to help my friend that I talked about.
Exactly, and that's what I heard. Let me say a couple things in closing. I do know you all well. As I mentioned, when I was at the Diego's service and saw Ray speaking, there was a Ray that it touched my heart, and to see you shed a tear tonight, Denise, you all you're incredible people, and you've come tonight, you both have been honest, you've both said, you've shared with us how hard it is for you to not push yourselves and drive yourselves, but you've opened up and you've helped a lot of us, and I love you both for it, so thank you all. Is there any questions from the audience? Besides, I guess we're way over the time, and so I'm sure they'll be here if you all want to chat.
I thought somebody's hand was up, and I know we're out of time, but if whoever that is, I mean, that's why we're here, is to talk to you. So if there's something we can help you with, let us know.
So thank you all for coming.
Great.
Thank you.